Hey, welcome to episode 3 of Atheism and Agnosticism. You have been lied to. This is going to tell you why lacking belief is philosophical atheism and how to understand what all this stuff means. Agnostic as a psychological state of belief means a lack of belief that gods exist. And agnostic as a proposition means the belief that gods are unknowable. Atheist as a psychological state of belief is a lack of belief that gods exist. And atheist as a proposition is the belief that no gods exist. But which one of these terms is philosophical? Both of them are. You've heard it here first. Both of these terms are philosophical. I don't care what anyone else is telling you. So one time I was watching a trial and this lawyer asked a witness, does the car exist? Now this witness could say yes, this witness could say no, and this witness could say, I don't know. So a yes would mean the car exists, right? A no would mean the car does not exist. There is no car. And I don't know just meant he didn't know either way if the car existed or not. So this witness said no. That's all he said, no. So the question, does the car exist? A no meant this witness was asserting the car does not exist. But we found out later that the car actually did exist. So this witness was a liar. But in that same trial, the attorney asked another witness, do you believe the car exists? Now this witness could answer a couple of ways. This witness can say, yes, they believe the car exists, or no, they don't. But they can't say, I don't know what I believe. It's either you believe the car exists or you don't. See, a yes here meant this witness believed the car exists, and a no meant this witness lacked belief that the car exists. This witness then answered no. So to the question, do you believe the car exists? This witness was actually saying that they lacked belief that the car existed. Remember, later on, we did find out the car actually did exist. So was this witness lying? No, this witness wasn't lying because he was only telling us what he believed. And this is what everyone has been missing for the past 5 years with this discussion. See, in one instance, the question is, does the car exist? When this witness says no, this witness is asserting that the car does not exist. And that's a proposition. See, when this witness was asked, do you believe the car exists? This witness also said no. But that meant something different. That meant that this witness lacked belief that the car existed, and that was this witness's psychological state of belief. Same answer, but that no meant something very different based on the question. So both these witnesses said no. So would we call one no philosophical no? The car does not exist, or would we call one a colloquial no? Yeah. That would be ridiculous. So understanding that both these witnesses are saying no to these questions, but it depended on what question they were asked, that is how we know what that no meant. So now let's change the game. Let's change it from does the car exist, or do you believe the car exists, to does God exist, or do you believe God exists? So this should work the same way. The question is asked, does the car exist, or do you believe the car exists? We're going to have both witnesses just say no. We're going to change it, though, to does the God exist, or do you believe the God exists? I've just changed the word car into God. Now, also, what that no mean is going to change, because it's not going to mean the car does not exist, because we're talking about God. So for the proposition, this is going to mean the God does not exist. And for the psychological state of belief, it's going to mean this person lacks belief that the God exists. Again, we just changed the word car for God, and it's working perfectly. So since they're both saying no, are we still going to say that in one instance, no is a philosophical no? The God does not exist when the first witness says no? Are we going to say the lack belief in a God exists, that no is a colloquial no? Yeah, again, we would say that would be ridiculous. But these are the arguments that are being put forth, these ridiculous arguments. So let's look at this again. So understand this. To the question, does the God exist? Or to the question, do you believe the God exists? No is actually synonymous with being an atheist. An atheist is saying no to both these questions. Does God exist? No, or you can say, I'm an atheist. If this person says, I'm an atheist, this person is asserting that gods do not exist. If asked the question, does the God exist? And in the other context, if you ask, do you believe the God exists? And this person says, I'm an atheist, the person again is saying no, then that person is telling you their psychological state of belief. I lack belief that the God exists. Again, they're using the same word, but in two different contexts. One as a proposition, one as a psychological state of belief, and their answers are based on the responses to the questions. Remember, the questions are very specific. So, just like when we said, no in one context is philosophical versus colloquial, we said that's ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense. And the same thing with atheists. Because the word atheist in this context is answering two separate questions, conveying two separate ideas. It'll be ridiculous to call one philosophical and one colloquial. So, if this witness answers, I'm an atheist, to the question, does the God exist? Then we know that witness is saying that they believe that gods do not exist. If the question is asked, do you believe the God exists? And this witness says, I'm an atheist, this witness is saying they lack belief. So, simply put, if the question is, do you believe gods exist? They're asking you for your psychological state of belief. If you say yes, you're a theist, you believe gods exist, and you say no, you're an atheist. You lack belief in a God. If the question is, do gods exist? They're asking you for a propositional stance, and that's if you say yes, you're a theist, gods exist. If you say no, you're an atheist. You believe no gods exist, and if you say I don't know, you're agnostic. So we've been looking at this in the sense of closed questions. Questions you can answer with a yes or no. Do you believe gods exist? Yes, no. Do you believe gods don't exist? Yes, no. Or, remember, you can only answer these questions with a yes, no, and sometimes an I don't know. But let's talk about this in the form of an open question. What does that look like? So here's one. What is your position on the existence of God? So if someone asks that question and says, I'm a theist, then it's clear. They believe gods exist. No controversy here. But if they say, I'm an atheist, what does that mean? Does it mean they lack belief in a God, or does that mean no gods exist? So let's think of it this way. If you're an atheist that believes no gods exist, you also are an atheist that lacks belief in a God. See, all atheists that believe no gods exist lack belief in a God. But not all atheists that lack belief in a God believe no gods exist. The propositional form of atheism is a subset of the psychological state of belief. So if someone asks, what's your position on the existence of God, and you say atheist, the only reasonable, safe assumption that you can make is that that person lacks belief in the existence of God. Are you confused? Let me use an example to clear it up. What if I change the question? Where do you live in the United States? Again, it's an open question. You can't say yes or no. And your response is, I live in New York. Well, is that New York State? Or do you live in New York City? See, New York City is a subset of New York State. So everyone who lives in New York City happens to live in New York State, but not everybody who lives in New York State lives in New York City. So the only safe assumption we can make is that if you say, I live in New York, you live in New York State. So just like when it comes to the position of atheism, what is your position on the existence of God? The person may believe that no gods exist, but the only thing you can safely assume is that they lack belief in a God. So, what's your position on the existence of God? If someone says they're an atheist, is that they lack belief in the existence of gods. So let's recap. First, if you're asked, do you believe gods exist? That's a psychological state of belief. Either you're a theist, belief that gods exist, or you're an atheist, you lack belief in that gods exist. Philosophical. If the question is, does God exist? That's asking for a propositional stance. If you're a theist, gods exist. If you're an atheist, you believe no gods exist. And if you're agnostic, you're saying, I don't know. We also talked about the difference between these questions being a closed question and an open question. And that when you're asked, what's your position on the existence of God? And if someone says they're an atheist, because all atheists who believe no gods exist are a subset of all the atheists who lack belief in a God, The only safe assumption you can have is that the person who says they're an atheist lacks belief in a God. That's why all the dictionaries, when you Google it, that's why this is the first thing that comes up, because this is the only safe assumption to the question about what's your position on the existence of God. Atheist that lacks belief in a God. Now, I think it's very, very important to note, because I've been trying to stay away from citing any of the literature, but I think this is important. The Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy says, quote, "It is important to recognize that the term atheism is polysemous. It has more than one related meaning, even within philosophy." So, to the question of which one of these versions of atheism are philosophical, they both are. It's about the context of the words. And that's what's been missing for the past 5 years. Now, in my next video, we're going to be looking at individual arguments of people who I respect, who do not get this, who do not understand these points. Now, I'm not going to try to embarrass anyone. I'm not going to try to harm anybody's reputation, but you're going to see that they're going to be asking questions and they're going to be making statements, and they are not going to understand this simple principle. And this is what the whole argument's about. A lack of understanding the word atheist in the proper context. See you on our last and final installment of Atheism and Agnosticism, Episode 4.